The Seattle Seahawks, the gateway to the Pacific Northwest. They also were called the Seattle Kings. They even had a plastic football with the Seattle Kings logo on it, but it got burned by a homeless person. Seattle is also home to Jason Lundgren, one of my fellow Aspies, and a very good video game player, if I do say so myself. He does arcade games like I do my sports video games. Hard and heavy. Anyway, the Seattle Seahawks one of the were an expansion franchise in 1976 alongside the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What was strange about the Seahawks was that in their first year, they were actually stuck in the NFC West and had to play every NFC team plus Tampa Bay for 14 games. Remember, in 1976, they only played 14 games instead of 16. And in 77, they were shifted to the AFC for divisional purposes, and then played every AFC team plus the Buccaneers, who went to the NFC. The Seahawks stayed in the AFC for a long time. The Seahawks were just getting their groove in. Heck, the Seattle Seahawks started 7 months before another expansion team in the Big Four leagues, that being the Seattle Mariners. And like the Mariners, they played in the vastly expanded Kingdome, if you will. The Seahawks weren't really that good. They did have a very good quarterback in Jim Soren and a great wide receiver in Steve Largent. The only problem is Seattle stupidly traded their number 2 overall pick in the 1977 draft to Dallas for 3 bodies. That didn't really do a thing. And who did Dallas pick up? None other than one of the great college running backs of all time, and just off a national championship with the University of Pittsburgh. And yes, the Pittsburgh Panthers did have a national championship without Dan Marino, and that was Tony Dorsett, the number 3. So anyway, the Seahawks came flying. They didn't really find success till 1983 when they shockingly got to the playoffs at a 9-7 mark. The Seahawks won their wild card game, but then went to Miami to face the Orange Bowl. To the Miami Orange Bowl to face the Miami Dolphins with rookie quarterback Dan Marino, also a Pitt Panther, if you must know. However, Seattle, for some reason, went into Miami and shocked the Dolphins 27-24. That got them to the AFC title game against the LA Raiders. Unfortunately for Seahawks fans, there would be no fairy tale as the Raiders end up going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl thanks to a couple of key moves hurting Joe Theismann and, of course, Jack Squire with that big interception. Now, that's my what-if team. And practically the Seahawks, what would happen if the Seahawks were in the 1984 Super Bowl against the Washington Redskins, Super Bowl 18? I forget where Super Bowl 18 is, but I picked Pro Player Stadium for some reason, just at random. So anyhow, that's my what-if. But we'll get to that later. First of all, we'll talk about the Seahawks. In the AFC West, they weren't that big, but they also had playoff failures. Especially in a division when Denver went to the Super Bowl almost every year, or at least to the AFC title game. Seattle would not have a lot of success in the AFC playoffs other than that one year. Seattle, I don't think, ever made an AFC title game other than 1984. The Seattle Supersonics, if you will. But anyway, Seattle Seahawks were not really that well placed. They tried. They actually won the division with a worn out Warren Moon, but that was all that she wrote. Unfortunately, the Seahawks would be booted from the Kingdome because the Kingdome had to be demolished to make room for Safeco Field. But on the Kingdome turf would be the new stadium, Quest Field, home of the 12-man and one of the loudest stadiums in NFL history. Obviously, they used engineering to make sure the fans could make people loud. Seattle would spend a couple years at Husky Stadium in Seattle before joining themselves at Quest Field. And also, Seattle surprisingly went to the NFC, mostly because the Houston Texans were coming into the league in 2002, and they chose the AFC. What the NFL did was make it 8 divisions instead of 6. So now they made the AFC and NFC go north, south, west, and east. I think, right? Yeah, that's right. Seattle was dumped into the NFC West with the Niners, the Cardinals, and the Rams. And of course, saving some NFL geography blunders in the first place. Because as we all know, that Arizona was placed in the NFC East stupidly. I know that the Cardinals franchise was in the NFC East for a while in St. Louis, but they never moved, despite the fact Arizona was good, is definitely out west, and also with the Falcons in the NFC West instead of being in the East because they're in Georgia. The Falcons were always in the NFC West for some reason. So the geography problem was solved. Seattle would now move to the NFC. It wouldn't take long for them to establish a foothold on the NFC playoffs. In their fourth year, led by Matt Hasselbeck and a resounding bump of a wide running back by the name of Sean Alexander, the Seattle Seahawks got all the way to the Super Bowl. They beat the New Orleans Saints and Chicago Bears, among others, to get in. So the Seahawks got to the Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Unfortunately for Seattle, they got robbed a couple of times by bad officiating and didn't recover, especially during Antoine Randall's gadget throw to Heinz Ward. Now, Randall was a quarterback at Indiana University. So the Seahawks thought, okay, well, this is just the thing about it. But the worst part is, and I forgot to mention that in their second year in the NFC, they actually went up in the wild card game against the Green Bay Packers, and Hasselbeck made himself a goat by stating that we want the ball and we're going to score. Wrongo. He threw an interception to Al Harris for a touchdown. So anyway, the Seahawks actually got themselves to the Super Bowl in 2014, led by a resounding new quarterback and running back combination of Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch. Not to mention that Marshawn Lynch was in Pacific Northwest folklore for his earthquake run in the 2010 playoffs against the defending Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints. Well, 2010-11. His touchdown run sent Seattle, who was 7-9 and won the division for some reason. They ended up beating the New Orleans Saints, and there was a magnitude 3 quake or something like that. That's kind of like a magnitude 3 quake. Beastquake, they call the play. It was amazing. So anyway, the Seahawks got to the 2014 Super Bowl to face Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. Of course, I wanted Seattle to win because, truth be told, I didn't want Peyton Manning to beat Tom Brady in a playoff match and then to get away with a Super Bowl ring. And thankfully enough, it was wrong. 43-8 was the final score of that game. It was amazing. I remember watching that Super Bowl during the break at Target, and I'm like, okay, he'll probably throw the ball. Come on, Seattle, intercept it. 30 seconds later, boom, there's an interception for a touchdown. Pick 6. I'm like, yes, yes, boy, yes. And then the next year, they got to the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. Of course, I was torn because, as a Patriot fan, I'm a loving guy. But then you got Jason, who was a Seahawks fan. I actually gave him a bit of a taunt. So I did some wrestlers and all that. It was kind of funny. Me impersonating The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Iron Sheik, and Roddy Piper, among others. And maybe Stone Cold Steve Austin. But anyway, Patriots ended up winning that Super Bowl only because Seattle refused to run the ball from the 1-yard line and get in for a touchdown. All Seattle had to do was get into the end zone with Marshawn Lynch. I would have conceded defeat. I would have been like, well, the better team won. Seattle would have back-to-back Super Bowls and become the first team in a decade to do that. But no, Malcolm Butler picked the ball off. What was Pete Carroll thinking? I mean, this is, I think, the only time I've ever thought about a New England Patriot opponent in the Super Bowl saying that they deserved the Super Bowl. So, regardless, Pete Carroll didn't run the ball. Seattle has been doing okay. Their defense has been their major story, but unfortunately, they haven't gotten much in the playoffs. So, anyway, we're just going to get this thing going. So, it'll be the Seahawks and Redskins at Super Bowl 18. If you must know, because Seattle lost an AFC title game to the Raiders. So, we'll get the Okay, ready to go. All right. All right, so you see the lineups and all of that. Play the game. Let's play the game, buddy. And make some changes to the window. Sorry about that. And boom. Wow. It is a happy ending for Jason Lundgren. He can be happy to know that the Seattle Seahawks are the 7th team, only the 7th team to get a happy ending. Final score 20-14. Let's go to the fourth quarter and talk about it. As you can see here, it was 10-7 for the Seahawks. They go on a long drive that lasted a while. A couple of third down conversions later. Was it David Hughes? I don't know. That's a guy. Scored a touchdown. They got the extra point to make it 17-7. Washington then gets a side 3 and out before Norm Johnson kicks a field goal to make it 20-7. The Redskins go on a massive drive. With 43 seconds left, Weisman throws a touchdown pass into the end zone, and then they make the extra point 20-14. They go for the onside kick, but Seattle recovers it. Craig takes the knee. Game, set, match. Final score 20-14. John Regan's got a touchdown run. Steve Largent got a pass from Dave Craig. Norm Johnson kicked the field goal. David Hughes was right with that play. Norm Johnson. Rick Walker for the Redskins. Dave Craig, the hero. Did he deserve it? I'm not too sure. Kurt Warner, Kurt with a C, 78 yards running. John Regan, 67. Joe Theismann threw for 151 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Craig, 175 for a touchdown. The only pick was by Keith Simpson. But Norm Johnson made 2 field goals, whereas Washington didn't have a chance at a chance. So, gee, can you believe it? The Seattle Super Seahawks would have got the 1984 title. It would have been amazing to see a team 9-7 win a Super Bowl. Of course, we would see that 24 years later, pissing me right off. Hail to you, Jason Lundgren. You got a happy ending. Enjoy it while you can.